At the airport, Samana Ben, a 17-year-old girl with a confident air, was excited about her first-class flight. Her dad, Morgan Ben, had given her the ticket as a birthday gift for all her hard work in school. This was her first time flying first class, and she couldn't wait to enjoy the spacious seats and the luxury treatment. As she walked through the terminal, she received a message from her dad telling her to enjoy the experience. She smiled, proud of her achievements, and headed to the boarding gate. When it was time to board, Samana approached the plane's first-class section, but a flight attendant stopped her, claiming that she didn't belong in that section. Samana showed her boarding pass, clearly marked for first class, but the attendant dismissed it, saying only passengers with premium tickets could sit there. Confused and frustrated, Samana explained that her dad had bought her the seat. The attendant doubted her story and suggested they verify it with the gate agent. As the situation grew more tense, other passengers started noticing. Some gave Samana sympathetic looks, while others whispered among themselves. Despite the tension, the attendant reluctantly allowed her to sit, warning her that she would have to move if there was an issue with the ticket. Samantha, feeling the eyes of everyone around her, sat down, her excitement now mixed with unease. She couldn't understand why she was being treated this way, especially when her ticket was clearly for first class. Samantha's discomfort was growing as the flight attendant, Kendra, walked away. But her brief moment of relief quickly faded. Samana was still worried they might ask her to leave the seat. Sitting in her assigned spot, she clasped her hands tightly in her lap, trying to ignore the growing whispers from nearby passengers. She could feel the weight of their gazes, some curious, others judgmental. The sting of Kendra's earlier dismissive remarks still burned, and Samana felt the frustration building inside her. She couldn't stop replaying the scene. The doubt in the flight attendant's voice, the assumption that she didn't belong in first class. It wasn't just humiliating. It was infuriating. All she had wanted was to enjoy the luxury of the first-class seat her father had bought her. But instead, she felt like a stranger in a place she rightfully belonged. Samantha hesitated, then reached for her phone. Her thumb hovered over her dad's number, but she paused before dialing. Her father had always encouraged her to face challenges with grace, to stay calm and confident. "You belong wherever you choose to be," he often said. His words rang in her head now, giving her the strength to stay composed. She took a deep breath and looked around the cabin, noticing the varied expressions from the other passengers. Some gave her sympathetic looks, while others wore smirks that only made her feel worse. She wanted to shout out, to tell everyone that she had earned her seat. But instead, she sat up straighter, lifted her chin slightly, and chose to remain quiet. She believed in her father's wisdom and in her own worth. If anyone questioned her right to sit there, she would let her father's actions speak for her. As the minutes passed, Samantha wondered if keeping quiet was the best choice. What if the situation got worse before her dad arrived? The tension in the cabin grew thick when Kendra returned, this time with the gate agent. The flight attendant looked at Samantha with skepticism, while the gate agent nervously glanced between Samantha and her boarding pass. "Miss," Kendra began sharply, "we've reviewed your ticket." Before she could finish, the cabin door opened and Samantha's father, Morgan Ben, stepped onto the plane. His presence immediately commanded attention. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, he exuded authority as he scanned the cabin. When his eyes met Samantha's, her shoulders relaxed and she smiled, feeling a sense of relief. Morgan walked down the aisle with confidence, his tall frame exuding power. Kendra turned toward him, confusion replacing her irritation. "Sir, we're just dealing with a seating issue," she said, trying to sound polite. Morgan didn't slow down. "A seating issue?" he asked, his voice calm but heavy with authority, silencing the murmurs around him. "With my daughter?" Kendra blinked, stunned. "Your daughter?" she repeated weakly. Morgan stopped beside Samantha, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then he turned to face Kendra and the gate agent. "Yes, my daughter. And I'd like to know why she's being questioned about her seat. especially when her boarding pass clearly shows she belongs here. The manager escorted Kendra to the back of the plane, and the cabin fell into an uneasy silence. Passengers exchanged glances, their faces a mix of shock and awkward embarrassment, some quietly discussing what had just happened. As some passengers avoided looking at each other, possibly feeling uncomfortable after witnessing the earlier incident, Morgan turned to his daughter, Samantha. His expression softened, and he bent down to meet her eyes. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice full of care. Samantha nodded, her voice shaky. "I'm fine, Dad. But why does this always happen? Why do people make assumptions?" Morgan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Some people can't see past their own biases," he said. "But today, they learned that assumptions come with consequences. And, more importantly, you showed them what it means to handle things with grace." He then stood up and spoke to the rest of the cabin. His voice was calm but firm. "Let this be a reminder to everyone. Don't judge someone based on their appearance or what you think you know about them. Every person deserves respect, whether they're my daughter, a stranger, or anyone else." The cabin fell silent as his words sunk in. A man sitting across the aisle cleared his throat and spoke up. "Mr. Ben, I just want to apologize. We should have spoken up earlier." A woman sitting in front of Samana added, her tone sincere. "She's lucky to have a father like you." And honestly, she handled herself beautifully. As the plane soared through the sky, Samana looked out the window, watching the clouds go by. The tension from earlier had dissipated, replaced by a sense of quiet pride. She turned to her father, who sat beside her, his posture relaxed but his expression thoughtful. "Thank you for standing up for me, Dad," she said softly. Morgan smiled warmly at her. "I'll always stand up for you, Samantha. But you stood up for yourself first, which I'm most proud of. You didn't let them shake you." Samantha's confidence grew with her father's words. "I just wish people wouldn't judge so quickly," she said. Morgan leaned forward slightly, his voice full of wisdom. "People will judge, no matter what. It's not right, but it's the truth. What matters is how you respond. Every time you rise above it and demand the respect you deserve, you teach others to be better." At that moment, a flight attendant from another section approached and placed a glass of sparkling water on Samana's tray, offering a kind smile. "With our sincerest apologies," she said warmly. Samantha looked at her father, who nodded approvingly. She took a sip of the water, allowing herself to enjoy the small victory. Morgan leaned back in his seat and glanced at his daughter. "Remember, Samantha," he said, "you belong wherever you choose to be, and no one has the right to make you feel otherwise. If you like the story, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Thanks."